Raleighwood, North Kakalaki. I don't know if that's an actual place, but we'll go with it. Just kidding. Green Bay, Wisconsin, St. Paul, Minnesota. Awesome. Give us just a second here, everyone, and we will be up and running, making sure we're streaming live out to social media, YouTube. We'll be dropping the direct Zoom link if you'd like to join us here. All right. DJ Nick, thank you so much. Looks like we are up and running. Welcome, everyone, to this town hall from Bunker Labs. My name is Liz Marion, and I'm your Director of Virtual Community Engagement. So excited to have this awesome town hall on how to build exponential growth and to have an appearance on Shark Tank, which we're going to hear a lot of those details in just a little bit. Coming in from our Minneapolis community today. So happy to welcome our ambassadors, see their faces, and one of our rockstar entrepreneurs in Minneapolis. I would want to thank our sponsors of our virtual events, the Gannett Foundation and MetLife Foundation, without which we could not do all of these great events that we are presenting to you throughout the week. Just a few little housekeeping things. If you do have any questions, please drop them in any of the social media channels that you're watching from in the comments, and we will pick those off and make sure that we can ask our guest and drop them in the chat here. Or if you are watching with us on Zoom, seeing some attendees here, then please drop them in the Q&A box, which are those two little bubbles at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will send those to be answered live towards the end of our chat. So today we are here with founder and CEO of Busy Baby, Beth Fynbo. Welcome, Beth. How are you?
I'm super. Hi, thanks for having me.
We're so excited that you could take a little bit of time out of your busy schedule with Busy Baby to be here. And then,
yeah. Sorry, I laughed because somebody wrote an article about me once, and they ended it with, "And she is busy, baby." And so now that's how I hear it every time.
That is great. And I didn't have enough style to do it that way, but next time, be ready. And I also want to welcome our Minneapolis ambassadors, Neil Scott and Drea Jones. Thank you both for being here. Welcome.
Thanks,
Liz.
And I am going to let those two lead this conversation because they know Beth the best, and also because we want to highlight that community today in Minneapolis who's doing great things. We were just actually talking about when I was there last year, -30, the coldest weather I've actually ever experienced my whole life. But what made it the best was that we got to play virtual reality games while I was there, which made Minneapolis one of the coolest places I've ever been. So had a great time.
Big shout out to REM 5. It's an awesome location, and they are open again.
All right,
I don't
so
for them.
Well, when I come back to Minneapolis in the summer, I will hit REM up again. That was so much fun that we did as a community last year. So Beth, I'm going to ask you first question, and then I'll let Drea and Niels get on this. But Beth, can you talk us through just a little bit when you first had the idea for Busy Baby and then decided maybe I'll pursue entrepreneurship full time? And, you know, we have a lot of entrepreneurs in that stage right now. If you could talk about your personal experience there.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I wanted to be an entrepreneur my whole life. My dad had his own welding company growing up, and I always worked there. And I thought it was just awesome to be in control of your whole life. And especially after being in the military for 10 years where you have no control over your life, I always wanted to do that. But I never knew what I wanted to do exactly. So after I had my first son, I had the idea for the Busy Baby mat, which for those who don't know is a silicone placemat that has suction cups on the bottom, and then you can attach baby's toys to it, like this kid, so they can't drop them and throw them constantly. So I had an idea for a product, and I knew that it could be something pretty cool, but I just didn't know where to go. So that's kind of how it started.
That's awesome. And yeah, looking at that background, as you can all see, the busy baby mat they attach there so that baby can't throw them on the ground, which I have witnessed many times with my friends and babies.
So many times. I wish that existed about 11 years ago. My twins are almost 11. Niels also has twins with another on the way. So it's a need for all parents.
Yeah. I wish I had $1 for every time someone said, where was this when my kids were little?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Beth, when you think, from that place of ideation to, where you are now, what made you consider Shark Tank? Like, how did that come?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Shark Tank, it's okay. So to start the whole story, I had the idea. I made a prototype, just something that functioned for myself and one of my best friends. And for a while, that's all it was. I didn't know what to do with it from there until she called me one day and she said, I forgot that mat thing last night. I took my son to the bowling alley and it was a nightmare. I had no idea how useful that thing was until I didn't have it. You need to make this for real. And so, Liz, you'll appreciate in January in Minnesota, it was freezing cold and I don't like the cold myself personally. So I was stuck in the house, kind of bored. And I thought to myself, how would I make this thing for real? And that's kind of what started the whole journey. And I was very fortunate to get connected to Bunker Labs right then and there with from another military veteran who I was in contact with. And she said, check out Bunker Labs. And so I did. And I had what is now the Veteran in Residence program, but it was a 12-week course that I was able to go to Minneapolis. I live in Rochester, which is about an hour away, and take classes every week and learn, like, what do you need to do to start a business? And the first step was get that market validation. Like, do you have an idea or a product or a service that people will pay for? You may think it's a great idea. Your family and friends are going to support you and say, great idea. But when it comes down to it, are people actually going to pay money for your thing? And if they are, is it enough money to cover what that thing is and how much it costs to make that thing? And so going to the classes through Bunker Labs helped not only identify that there was market fit for my product, but it gave me the confidence to take the steps to go through with making it, because it's extremely expensive to do professional product development and to get patents, like IP work. I mean, I think if anybody knows a lawyer that's not expensive, let me know, but I don't think they exist. So it was a big journey. But in that Bunker Labs course, one of the facilitators said, by the way, I have an email address for a Shark Tank producer. The show reached out last season because they were looking for veterans to feature on the show. And I said, well, I'll take the email address, but like, I'm nowhere ready for Shark Tank. So I took that email address and I put it into my contact list on Gmail. It actually might have been Yahoo still at that time. And then fast forward a year to when I finally released my product, I blasted every email address I had, which was like high school sweethearts, probably like college instructors, and apparently Shark Tank producer, because a couple days later, I got a response saying, hey, this is so-and-so from Shark Tank. I see that you have a product on the market. What are your sales like? Would you be interested in being on Shark Tank? And so I wrote back and I said, yeah, I'm on the market. I think I've sold $1,200 so far already. I would love to be on Shark Tank. And he said, well, you're probably not ready just yet. So we do take businesses at all stages, but it would be good if you had at least 100,000 in sales. So he and I stayed in touch for the next year or two. And when I finally reached that milestone, I emailed back to him and I said, hey, I met the milestone. I have the sales and I have patents. And he said, that's great. We just wrapped season 11. So reach back out to me when we start recording for season 12. So I did. And then I got to go on Shark Tank. So it was a long process, but that's
incredible.
The story.
And amazing how you just made the 1,200 to 100K leap, like no biggie. That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, when you were talking with Bunker then, because I was going to ask and Niels didn't want to ask all the questions, but would you say then that of all the nuggets or pieces of advice or wisdom that you got from those 12 weeks at Veterans and Residence, was that one of the biggest? I mean, that seems almost like a luck, or that you kept
Yeah. No,
Hearing
I mean,
was
I
important,
definitely,
that was on you, but what other pieces or nuggets from the VIR program did you do you feel that you took away with you?
oh, I would say Shark Tank was probably the least valuable of all of them. I mean, there's a million ways to get to that point, but I mean, I think confidence in my journey is the very most important thing I got. Um, because you go through, you're with other people who have experiences and are on the same journey in different parts of the journey. And to get that validation from someone who knows what you're going through, and then to also see, there's a lot of ups and downs in entrepreneurship. And I don't think that ever ends. I've always thought as I've been going through this journey, like, oh, if I just learn this next thing, then it's going to get a little easier. If I just learn this next thing, oh, there's one more thing I got to learn, then it'll get easier. And it doesn't. You just get bigger problems. And there's a lot of ups and downs with confidence when it comes to, am I doing the right thing? Do I know what I'm doing? What I don't know, what are those things? So having a community of people that are going through it, who have already been on that path. And now I'm really fortunate and happy that I'm this far down the road. Now I'm able to help those people who are in their beginning stages and kind of return that favor. So just that community is a never ending, amazing part that has come out of Bunker Labs, for sure.
As you talk about what you learned, Beth, I feel like when we talked before, you shared all kinds of things about those ups and downs in that journey. Uh, I think the thing I'm still fascinated with was your decision to invest in protecting your intellectual property. And I think a lot of us, when we're early on with the business, that's a really hard decision to make. So, can you share with us a little bit about how that worked out for you, and looking back, how important that decision was?
I mean, I can say right now, it's the best decision I ever made and the hardest decision I ever made. Because it's expensive. And before you even have a sale or a product to sell, you have to start investing thousands of dollars in IP if you have something that is patentable. So I'm glad I made that decision, because even before Shark Tank aired, we had our first knockoffs on Amazon. And because I had the patents, I could fight those knockoffs. Getting a patent is not like that. It is a very long process. So it's not something you can be reactive with. You can't be like, oh gosh, there's somebody knocking off my idea, I better patent it. No, like you might as well just move on to your next thing if that's the case. So early on, spending that money before I even knew, is this thing going to work? Are people going to buy this thing? I mean, will it even get knocked off? Is it worth spending that money? Because who knows if it's even going to be worth something worth knocking off. So that's a very hard thing to do. And it's one that I vetted a lot with multiple patent attorneys. My number one key tip is, with anybody doing a product, is do a paid patent search before you invest any money in developing your own product. I did not know this until I was $16,000 into development. And I talked to a patent attorney who said, have you done a patent search? And I said, what patent, what? Like, what's a patent search? He's like, okay, how much are you invested in this so far? And I was like, why? Like, a lot. So because if this is already patented, you can't just make it. You have to make sure that it's not patented and you're not infringing on someone else. Otherwise, you go through that whole process and basically they can sue you and take every single dollar.
And did you do that for both the product and the name Busy Baby?
I did. The name kind of was funny. It came to me, when I finally decided to do this. I had a 5-month-old son. And so he hated being in the car seat in the car. And so I would constantly be like singing to him, like even if I'm just singing off the radio or doing the ABCs, that's the only thing that made him stop crying. And so I was like, I need to come up with a name for my business. What's going to keep you busy, baby? Like just like singing to him to think out loud. And I was like, Busy Baby. Oh, there we go. That'll work. And then, trademark searches are pretty easy. You can do a trademark search yourself. Patent search is not so easy. It seems easy. You can start by just going to Google Patents and looking up things there, but you're not going to find everything there. You need to pay a professional for a true patent search.
And I feel like that's why it sticks with me, is when you talked about paying for that, I think you threw out like 40K or something like that. I'm just like, ugh, when you're early in the business, that is expensive. That's
yeah. I mean, that's not the patent search. I think that's how much I've got invested, in the IP altogether for, filing and creating them. And I have multiple patents out there. for those, like, not to scare off people who are just starting about and thinking about patenting an idea, a good patent search is going to cost between like $500 and $800. But yeah, actually getting a patent is tens of thousands of dollars in the end.
One of the questions that came up in the chat, Beth, is, for the product-based companies, what types of growing pains have you hit? For example, how do you deal with a sudden influx of orders? Were you prepared for that? What are those things that kind of keep you up at night?
What keeps me up at night is all the unknowns of, I know there are so many things I don't know, and I don't know what they are. I am a very proactive person. I like to, like my brother says, my foresight is, unparalleled. I can see things a little bit further down the road than the average Joe. So I'm constantly trying to think of, like, what are the things that I'm going to be dealing with. And fortunately, a lot of things I kind of guess, like, for example, Shark Tank. Obviously, first, there's no guarantee you're going to get on air. So even though I flew there and recorded it, there's no guarantee you're going to be on air. But if I do get aired, there's going to be a lot of publicity and a lot of orders. Well, if I don't have the inventory to sell, I'm going to lose those orders. I'm going to lose that momentum. So I took the risk of investing in a ton of inventory to make sure I would be able to do that. Because for me, a silicone product's not going to go bad. It doesn't need to be temperature controlled. Worst case scenario, I don't air. It takes a long time, but eventually it all sells. So, deciding to order almost $500,000 worth of product was, a big risk, but one I'm glad I took. I don't know if that even answers the question, but it's navigating the unknowns is still always the biggest challenge.
Another question that came up was, and that might have answered it some, but how did you go from idea to 100,000 so fast, or walk us through that?
So fast. Oh gosh. It didn't feel fast.
So fast.
And actually, and I'll tell you more, which is like even more exciting to me and still unreal to me, is that I'm now in the millions. So my first year, I got the product made early in the year. I think January, I got my first air shipment of the first like 300 products to send out. And then in March, I got my first container or shipment, wasn't a container, of 5,000 mats. And I thought 5,000 mats, it filled up the whole wall of my basement. I figured it's going to be at least a couple of years of inventory, but that was like the minimum for the factory. And probably 2 weekends a month, I would pack up my suitcases with as many mats as I could fit in them and fly to different expos. I would go to Prego expos, Mommy Cons, any event for new and expecting parents, set up my booth with, banners like this, and just, sell them. I was selling them out of the trunk of my car. I was doing street fairs in Rochester. And that first year, that's where the majority of the sales came from. That was 2019. So in that 1 year, we did about 97,000 in sales. 2020, I had product and retail packaging. Like, I was ready to start going into stores now because I had some validation from the market that people would buy this. They like it. The reviews were coming in really good. So I invested in creating retail packaging and got my first shipment that had retail packaged products in January of 2020, which is also when I had a second baby. And my plan was to go out after maternity leave, or like during my maternity leave from work, and, start selling them to stores. And then if you guys weren't around, a little pandemic happened and everything shut down. Every single store closed its doors. So I had no place to sell these to. I also had banked on doing my trade shows again for the whole year, which no travel, no trade shows, nothing. And where I was seeing maybe 20 orders a day went down to like 2 orders a day online on my website. And so I decided to, I don't know, I guess the key word of the 2020 was pivot. And I took all of my travel budget and I put it into Facebook ads, and I hired a professional to run Facebook ads. And so in 2020, I went from almost $100,000 in sales to almost $1 million in sales from Facebook ads and Instagram ads. Shifted the marketing from a product you use in a restaurant to a product that you use at home, because it's a product you can put on the high chair and keep baby busy while you're cooking, keeps baby socialized and engaged with you at the table while you're eating together as a family, and can keep your baby busy for a 30-minute Zoom call now that everybody's working from home, or, while you're schooling your other children, but baby still needs attention. So that kind of pivot in marketing really went well. And then now for this year, we've already surpassed last year's sales in the first quarter. So it's growing very, very quickly. And it's grown because we've added new products. I've released new products. I've also started selling other products from other companies that go with my mat. So now there's add-ons. Average order values almost doubled in the last year. So I guess that part's fast.
Yeah. Well, looking back, I love that you pivoted so well. I mean, what so many unknowns during 2020. But I think when you talk about foresight and the unknown, the fact that when you were on Shark Tank, you actually had a clip of yourself there at the kitchen table after the kids were in bed, making your product, and one day I'm going to be on Shark Tank. What kind of advice would you have for other entrepreneurs that are just starting out, just have an idea, don't know what next or where to go with it? I mean, there is so much unknown when you're first getting started, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think anybody who's got an idea, just take the first step. I mean, the first step I suggest for people is talk to strangers. That was part of my Bunker Labs experience and instruction that first week of participating in the program was go talk to, I think they told us to do 100 strangers, go interview 100 strangers. And I think they made us come up with 5 or 6 questions of, here's my idea. Would you pay for it? What would you pay for it? How would you use it? Kind of thing like that. And so I think I maybe did 10 people, but I got such an overwhelming response going to Target, talking to moms who had a baby in their cart. And I only ask people with content babies because as a mom, you do not, like if you're shopping and your baby's not happy, you just want to get done. But I had my little flimsy cut and glued together prototype. And I said, can I ask you a question? I have this idea. I want to maybe make it for real, but this is what it does. Would you pay for it if you would? And I had multiple people ask me, can I just buy that one from you? Like right now. So I was like, yeah, okay. So it's an idea worth pursuing. So I think if anybody has a great idea or what they think is a great idea, ask some strangers. Don't ask your friends and family. They're going to be nice to you. Ask whoever might be your target demographic, like who is your customer, go find those people and just ask them a couple questions. Say, I've got an idea. Do you think it's a good idea, stranger? And then if it is, then reach out. There's so many resources. Minnesota, especially, I know for certain, probably all other states has a ton of resources for helping out small businesses. And for veterans and military families, Bunker Labs is the best one. But then there's, every county and every region, in Minnesota, we've got the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. They've helped me get loans to pay for inventory and stuff like that, grants, technical assistance. I had my first website got built for free. Just through the local small business administration office. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. When you think of what your, BHAG or big, hairy, audacious goal is in the next 10 years, 5 years, what is it now that you've come so far already?
I'm going to sell Busy Baby for $40 million or more.
Which goes to one of the questions that we received from Jeff Johnson. Did you ever consider selling the idea IP to a manufacturer company and then receive some type of royalty from them on sales?
Yeah, actually, that's interesting because that's kind of the offer Lori made me on Shark Tank. So for those who didn't see the episode, none of the guys on the panel had any interest in being in the baby business. Lori gave me an offer and she only wanted to license to Munchkin, in which case I would get an upfront kind of royalty guarantee. And they would take over all production. They would take over all the work. I would just, as she said, I think, sit back and let the money roll in. What you guys didn't get to see on TV, if you did watch the episode, was the other 50 minutes that I was in there talking to them and asking Lori for help with getting into retail. And my second product that I was just about to launch and growing my business. Licensing for me, maybe in the first year would have been a great option. But once I had already done the work, got the manufacturing, all my logistics figured out, not so much anymore. But I do have a product. Someone reached out to me after seeing me on Shark Tank. 2 moms in Florida, they invented a product and they thought it would work well. I sell it on my website now. I'm actually in the process of vetting them out, or vetting, I guess, the whole thing out. I'm going to acquire them and they're going to make a royalty off of me. So I'm going to buy their patent. I'm going to manufacture their product. I'm going to rebrand it as mine. And then they're going to get 50 cents a piece forever. So I think in very early stages, that is a great deal for them. They don't have the time, the money, the resources, the energy, probably with twins, to do all that work. I've already got the established kind of channels now. So for me, it makes sense to take that on, and it makes sense for them just to take the royalty. But where I'm at, I don't think I would do that, but I would definitely sell the business for $40 million.
So if you got 40 mil, people, go ahead and just write it down.
How did you come up with that valuation?
Well, it's nonsensical. My brother joined me in the business this year, and so he actually owns 20% of the business now. I own 80. So we started with what money he would want to walk away with after taxes, and figured out the math. When you do all the math, if we sold it for 40 million, he'd be set in a spot where he wants to be, and I'd be obviously set too. So then we move on to our next adventure.
Love that.
So to Drea's question, now I was going to ask you about the behind the scenes with Shark Tank, and I didn't realize, of course, until we were talking to you, that of course it's edited down. Of course you're on the set a whole lot longer, and all we see is just a slice of the thing. But as Drea asked about valuation, I'll admit my own ignorance. Sometimes when I'm watching Shark Tank, it feels like a different language when we're talking about percentage points and how much you're going to get for this and that and the other. And so I'm just naming my own experience, I guess, that it's a little bit of anxiety. How do you figure out how to navigate that? What kind of preparation did you have to do for the show? What other juicy tidbits did we miss that were edited out?
Okay. For my favorite juicy tidbits that I wish they would have shown was, like, Mark Cuban was actually standing up cheering for me. He's like, yes, Beth, yes, stick to your guns. I like a military woman who can, like, really hold her ground. That was awesome. In the beginning, they did not show, I don't think they showed, I can't remember. Actually, I've only seen the episode twice because it's hard to watch myself on TV, and since I'm talking to a military community here, I can say this a little bit more freely, is when it came out right away in the beginning that I was in the military, Lori said to me, oh my gosh, you were in the military? Oh, I was much too small and petite to have been in the military. And I was like, okay, first of all, are you playing Amazon or something? And second of all, I know a lot of badass women who are tiny who killed it in the military. So take your and so yeah. I won't go any further into that.
When you were saying Mark Cuban stood up, I'm like, well, that sounds like that could be patronizing, but if you didn't take it that way, that's great.
Oh no, he was cheering for me. He actually yelled at Lori at one point during the conversation. He stood up and yelled at Lori. He said, all right, Lori, you're just disrespecting her now. So there was a lot of that I thought, oh, for sure I'm going to be on TV, because they have the sharks like yelling at each other, but then they didn't show any of it. So
that's interesting. I mean, yeah, they probably like to kind of intensify or be over dramatic or melodramatic about.
Yeah. And I think the sharks actually have a little bit of a say in what gets shown, and maybe, they didn't want themselves to be shown in a certain light, something like that. Maybe, I don't know.
When you're a billionaire.
I don't know. But as far as the valuation, Niels, I had no idea. In my brain, like, I can think and do so many things. I'm a very smart woman, but my brain does not accept, like, computations and valuations and EBITDA and anything tax related. None of that stuff. Like, I finally bit the bullet and hired a bookkeeping company and accounting company, because I can't, my brain, I can Google things 10 million times and I still don't get it. So I threw a number out there just because I wanted, I didn't have a real valuation. I think the valuation I put on it was 5 million. I just threw out a number to have a number.
Yeah.
And then of course, Mr. Wonderful told me, you're crazy. That's a ridiculous valuation. You're crazy. And I said, well, what do you think I'm valued at? And he said 2 million. I was like, okay, I'll take that. Like, cool.
If you were to, as you're talking about Bookkeeper or like the agency that did your Facebook ads, if you were to give some shout outs to Twin Cities companies that you would highly recommend, 10 out of 10 for the entrepreneurs that are getting going, who would it be?
Well, for Minnesota, it's definitely University of Minnesota has an incredible program for entrepreneurs. I did not go to the U of M. I was 40 when I started this process. You don't need to be a student, but they do a competition every year called the Minnesota Cup. And it's a startup competition for Minnesota residents who have a business idea. And I participated in that for 3 years. I ended up with significant financial prizes from that competition. So, I mean, significant being in total over the 2 years I got financial prizes, it was $85,000 of free money.
Wow.
So take advantage of that. Apply. They've already closed applications for this year. They do it every year. Highly recommend that. And then one of the sponsors of that is Lori accounting firm in Minneapolis. And that's who we now have as our accountant. I always thought I was too small beans for a big accounting firm that has partners and, and stuff. But, you know, I guess that's part of the growing pains, is having to bite the bullet and pay the big bucks to the big guys who know what they're doing.
Speaking of, Nick's got a question from the chat. In terms of bookkeeping and Facebook ads, what were the first things that you outsourced, and how did you make those decisions?
I outsourced the stuff I hated to do. So for me, the first thing was social media. I scroll social media. I use Facebook to stay in touch with friends or plan events, but to create content and come up with copy, and a very, very important part of business is your social media presence. I mean, that's one of the most important things. I see a direct response from when I post something to when I don't. If I'm not consistent on social media, we're just out there, we're kind of existing. But when we get consistent, then we see orders come in more. We see more engagement. We see the followers grow organically, and it's all about consistency. Well, I'm doing all the other things too. I don't have time to come up with what's going to be a cute Instagram copy, what emoticon should I use in the copy to match the, whatever image. So I hired somebody. That was the first thing I did, was hired somebody that would just, and there's people who love doing that and that are so good at it, and it's not ridiculously priced thing to do, and it really does help. So I think $400 a month, I pay someone who does just Facebook and Instagram posts. That was one of the first things.
I think that's such a great move. And EOS, if you've read Traction or used that as an operating system, there's this concept of delegate and elevate, and you identify what are those key things that you really love to do and that you're great at, and those things that you like to do and that you're good at, and then the things that you hate to do and you're terrible at anyway, and the things that you don't like to do, and you start to find there are people that are uniquely talented and gifted to do that very thing. So that was awesome.
I hired someone to do SEO, and he loves it. I'm like, you're weird. Love SEO. But there's people who love SEO. Setting up Amazon. Amazon is something you can do. I get a lot of my sales from Amazon. It's a beast. Amazon is a beast. And to do it well, and same with Facebook ads and Amazon ads, to do it well, you need to know what you're doing. You need to pay attention to it regularly. You have to kind of dig through the data. There are people who love doing that and are good at it. That's not me. So you're right, Andrea, that's exactly what I think my advice would be, is just outsource the stuff that you don't love, because there's other people who love it and will do a better job.
I could ask you questions all day, Beth. How many, what is your week like in terms of work, life balance?
Yeah, usually, so I have 2 kids, 1 and 4, and I usually get up, I naturally wake up early. So I come out so my warehouse, this building that I'm sitting in, is like a second garage building on my property. I live in the middle of the country, so it's like a farm property, and my husband and my dad kind of put walls in it and insulation so I could work out of it. So I come out to my warehouse at 5 a.m, get through some emails, get through whatever stuff until I see a little blonde head poke up over the door over there. And my son will just walk out when he wakes up, and he'll join me for a little bit. And then I go in the house, we do breakfast, we get the kids ready for daycare, get the kids off to daycare. And then I work kind of like a 9 to 5, I suppose, like everybody else, until I go pick up the kids from daycare. And then from 4 to 7, until the baby goes to bed, it's no work. It's just the kids. We have a play area in this warehouse for them to hang out on the weekends or when there's stuff I have to do. But I try to keep that boundary for family from 4 to 7. And then sometimes I'll come back out to work at night if I need to. Sometimes I don't. But yeah, that's a typical day.
Awesome.
Got a couple questions coming in from the Q&A. One is a technical question, which of course I love these with our audience too, is how do you decide on business structure? Did you change business structure during the life of your company so far, like starting it as an LLC, or, did you make the decision with advice, or how was that decision made?
Yeah, I started with an LLC because it was cheap and easy to do, and I wanted to be protected. Then as we grew, we moved to an S corp, I guess for tax purposes. And then now we're looking at switching to a C corp. And I don't know why, but the CFOs that I hired are telling me that's what I should do. And I'll know more about why during our next meeting. But I paid a significant amount of money in taxes this year for last year, probably more than a lot of people make. And it was painful. And I didn't know. Like, that's one of the things, I think a question earlier, I had no idea the tax implications of making money. And, most businesses, you try to not make too much money in the first couple of years because you can. But for me, I have very low overhead. I don't have a lot of expenses. So we made good money. And then the tax implications were very, very bad for me. And so when I went in to meet the CPA and she hands me, here's your tax returns, and I saw how much I had to pay, and I was like, where am I supposed to get that? Like, my money is, I'm making inventory, I'm paying for ads. Like, how am I supposed to come up with that kind of money by the 15th? So I hired a CFO, and it was actually really ironic timing. It's within an hour after getting that message, a former officer in the Army reached out to me on LinkedIn, and he said, this is so serendipitous. Sent me a LinkedIn message saying, hey, I'm Daniel. I am also a veteran, and I love to help veteran small businesses. I offer CFO services for small businesses. If you'd like to talk, reach out. And since I had just gotten this tax news an hour earlier, I reached out immediately and said, can you help me figure out how not to get, pay so many taxes next year? Like, should I have, I see another question about paying myself. I didn't pay myself. I'm in this rut. I still don't technically pay myself, actually. I pay just enough to meet the qualifications for the S corp, but I feel like as the entrepreneur, I should be just grinding away and not taking money out of the business. But you get to a point where you have to. So that's the point I'm at, is I'm deciding now, how much am I going to take out of the business? And I'll have the help of these CFOs to figure that out.
That's great. And I love the highlight too of, it takes a village, the team for sure, that you have to build around you. And one of the questions from Shelby was saying, how do you make decisions and assess risk, for one? And is there a group of advisors around you that helps you make those really difficult decisions?
Yeah, I think one of the best things I've done this whole journey, starting with Bunker Labs, was I'm not afraid to ask questions, and I'm not afraid to be very forward and just say, like, do you know how to do this? Whatever the thing is. And then after a conversation, I will say, who else could I talk to? Who else do you think might be able to give me some tidbits of information? So I think the first year of starting this business, I talked to over 100 strangers who were just like one referral to the next. Bunker Labs put me in touch with somebody who could help me with, some IP stuff, like a patent attorney. And that led me to getting a recommendation from somebody he knew whose daughter had a product who did a Kickstarter, and I needed advice on a Kickstarter. And then that person referred me to somebody she worked with who, was in a different area of the business. And I just asked, people will give you 20 minutes of their time. I mean, there are mentors everywhere, and people are happy to give you 20 minutes of their time if you ask. If you don't ask, you don't get answers. And so I've always asked people, to the point where now I have this huge network that I didn't even realize that I built, of people I know in all these different areas. So when I had my first knockoff on Amazon, my heart sunk. And then I looked around and was like, who could I call? Well, I had 10 people I called within the first hour. And within the first 2 hours, I already had a plan of how to tackle this knockoff. So it's developing that network of people. And that's where, again, things like communities like Bunker Labs, you have that network. I mean, you can go to the Bunker Labs Facebook group and put a question out there and you'll get 30 answers. Having that network is the most important thing.
I think that's especially in the space where we have been virtual. I think Minneapolis, Twin Cities is uniquely known for that entrepreneurial spirit and number of startups that have sprouted here. But at the same time, as you mentioned, it doesn't have to be specific to the Twin Cities, especially now that we haven't been in person. Being able to pose that question and be vulnerable and know that there are people that are going through the exact same thing, whether they are a solopreneur or are scaling really rapidly. So many of these questions that we've even covered today are we feel those same pangs.
Yeah, and they've either gone through it before and have an answer for you, or they know somebody else who's gone through something similar, or that person might know somebody who's already conquered that thing. And like for my Amazon knockoff thing, I got connected to a guy, a lawyer, who created Amazon's patent protection program. It's an invite-only program that helps protect your patented products on Amazon. He helped write the program for Amazon. I got in contact with him, and now I find knockoffs on Amazon and they're down within 24, 48 hours for $100. Just like that. Easy peasy. Yeah. But it's you find people who know people and know of somebody who had a similar thing, and it always helps.
Very cool.
I have one more question.
Sorry, go ahead, Liz.
Go ahead, Niels.
Well, I'm just curious what's next for you. So we can hold that for a second if there's a good question on the chat that you want to get to, Liz.
There's just one question in the Q&A since we just have a few minutes. And it's from Jeff. And he said, you mentioned market validation and asking random people on your thoughts and your product at Target. Is there a more formal way that you know of doing this, or that you would suggest, like a survey or companies that do validation for you?
Yeah, there are. Yeah. And I think it depends on what you're doing. There are certainly companies that do that, and you can do Google searches or something. I don't think that's really necessary unless you're doing something maybe in the medical device arena, or something with maybe food where you want to be cautious of testing and learn that way. Think of your own experiences. I mean, how many times have you received a survey in your email and you're just like, delete? I almost never do them.
Won't do it.
So there's tons of companies that will send your survey to thousands of people. But even when you get them, I mean, who is the kind of person that answers those surveys? I don't know. Are they your target customer? Probably not. So to me, the strangers that you ask would be people who would be your target customer. So if you're going to sell, a specific kind of Kleenex box that is designed to fit in your car's cup holder, which I know that already exists, but I mean, who would you ask? Probably people who commute a lot, or, I don't know, allergy sufferers. I don't know. I think that's a horrible, horrible example. I'm suffering from allergies, so that's what came in my head. But just finding that target customer, I think you got to figure that out anyway before you move forward. So ask those people. I don't think it needs to be formal. I don't think it has to be structured questions. It has to be something like, here's my idea. Would you pay for it? And if you would, how much would you pay?
I could just picture you walking through Target doing exactly that. And I love that mental image.
It was hard. It was so hard because as much as it's easy for me to talk to a computer screen, I am very much an introvert, and I'm very shy in person with people, and I don't like to approach people. So that was very hard for me. That was, I mean, I guess it sounds easy when you tell the story 3 years later, but it was very uncomfortable. And sometimes you have to do uncomfortable things, and it helps.
I'm so impressed that you did that, because I know I started a fitness concept called Alchemy, and going up to people, I'm an extrovert, but going up to people, even as an extrovert, and asking them, will you come here and do a workout with me? Will you just do some squats with me? Can you hold a plank with me? And they're like, you want me to move my body? Like, it's not even to ask a question. It's like, no, I want you to get physical with me right now. And that's, I think that's a tough thing, but I think that's a really good point to take in, and which is different than delegate and elevate, because that's like, you could take the things off your plate that you don't want to do, but when you're taking that first step that you were talking about and ready to make the leap, you have to get really comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that's all. I think the entire first year, I was uncomfortable with literally everything I was doing. I was uncomfortable and nervous before every phone call with a mentor. I was uncomfortable and nervous with every single pitch I gave. I did a lot of 1 million cut pitches, that if people are familiar with that. It's a completely risk-free way to just talk about your business and get feedback. There's nothing on the line, but I was so scared and nervous preparing for them and pitching my business in front of strangers. So it's a lot of uncomfortability, but now it trained me to stand in front of 5 sharks on Shark Tank and not have a single nerve in my body, because I'd already done it so many times that it was just doing it again.
Questions keep coming in, Beth, but I don't know what our time frame is, Liz.
We are at time, but I will make sure that we capture the questions and send them on and get answers for everybody. Also, just, encouragement to join our community, like Beth is saying, and Drea and Niels, join Bunker Labs. If you're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, join our community to know what's going on. Post in those channels. You will get answers. Believe me, like Beth said, if you post a business question, you will get 30 or more answers. And also, Bunker Labs Minneapolis has its own Facebook page. So if you're looking to connect in the Twin Cities, please, go to that page and somebody will answer your questions and resources there. Also, you can find us on Bunker Online. If you go to bunkerlabs.org and you click that big orange, the Bunker Orange Connect button on the top right, you can join our online community, where there are also groups in several different industries, as well as our communities around the country. But I just want to thank all three of you. Niels and Drea, thank you for leading this conversation from Minneapolis. We really appreciate that. And Beth, cannot thank you enough for sharing your journey with our community and also being part of our Bunker Labs family. So appreciative of that. We'll make sure we need to get everybody a Minneapolis shirt since you're in Minneapolis.
I don't think that we gave the plug that we are talking again next week, because we just love talking to Beth so much.
Please plug away.
So that'll be Thursday, May 13th at 2 p.m. Niels, do we have any a link here, or we can share it after the fact?
I think maybe we'll get that one after the fact, Drea.
Yep.
I will drop the link to that event in all of our comments. So if you're watching on
Perfect.
social or anything like that, I will drop it there so you can find it there.
Liz.
Yeah, of course. And also, tomorrow we are celebrating Military Spouse Appreciation Day. It is May 7th. So we will have another one of these chats as well. So you can join us same time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so we're celebrating that. And we encourage you to also share your stories as military spouse entrepreneurs tomorrow, all over social. So thank you again, and we will see you all soon. Please feel free to drop questions or contact us at townhall@bunkerlabs.org for any other needs.
Thanks for having me, guys. And thanks for, honestly, Bunker Labs, I would not be in business without Bunker Labs. So I appreciate this organization so much, and I encourage everyone to participate. Ask questions, you'll get answers, and you'll go farther than you even believe you could.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks for joining us. Drea, Niels,
Bye,
thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks for being so awesome, Beth.